You walk into Walmart, and for just a second, everything feels fine. There's that familiar hum of white lights overhead, the polished floors, the air, just a little too cold, like they're trying to keep everything preserved. Maybe even you. You grab a cart, it wobbles to the left. Of course it does. Still, you start walking. Rows and rows of everyday low prices. Smiley faces promising savings. Laughter from the toy aisle. That sense that whatever you need, you'll find it here. But what if that's the trick? What if Walmart doesn't just sell you things? What if it sells you trust? Because underneath those signs and stacked aisles lies something else. Something quieter. Not a scam, something more delicate. It's a system, built on patterns. Choices made for you, weeks before you even stepped foot inside. A playbook that turns your budget into their blueprint. And it starts the second you let your guard down. Let's talk about it. The first trap? That bright red clearance sticker. You know the one. Taped over the label at a proud little angle, like it's doing you a favor. But bend down, look closer. Sometimes it's hiding the original price. Sometimes that $5.97 isn't a deal at all. It's the same price, just dressed in highlighter to push urgency. It's not always cheaper, just louder. A study out of MIT found that consumers are 34% more likely to buy a product that's labeled sale, even if the price never changed. And Walmart knows that. So they use it. They play familiarity against you. That same shelf you return to every week, now with half an ounce less. The pasta sauce with a smaller neck, but the same jar height. You don't notice, not consciously, but you do start buying more of it. Shrinkflation is Walmart's silent trick. You don't see it happen, you feel it later. When you're down to your last scoop 3 days sooner than expected. Because here, quantity changes quietly, quality fades fast. Let's talk about what you're actually getting. The home decor aisle, for starters. All faux wood and silver decals, mirrors that warp within a season, picture frames with staples poking out the back, clocks that lose 5 minutes a week, but no one notices until you're late for a thing that mattered. These aren't objets d'art, they're objects of forgettable function, built for display, rarely for durability. One review said, "The shelf looked great until I actually put anything on it." That's the pattern here. Items engineered to appear more than they are. Boxes that feel unusually light. Labels that say premium but never explain why. Chairs that shake. Beds that creak on day 2. Rugs that slide across your floor like they've got somewhere more important to be. It's not just about saving money, it's about the illusion of value. You've seen their mainstays line? The name says stay, but nothing about it stays together. One screw turns too tight, and suddenly you're looking at splinters. You pay less now, and again, and again. How much are you really saving? You think you're being smart, spending less, but there's a cost baked in. It's called time. It's called buying it twice. Sometimes it's called stress. And stress sells too, because when one thing breaks, you come back. Every broken plastic drawer is another chance to make it right. Another opportunity to sell you more of what didn't work the first time. The store isn't failing you, it's cycling you. Let that sink in. Then there are the bargain electronics. They line up neatly under lock and key displays, earbuds for a price that feels too good, smartwatches that sound impressive, till an app won't open or a screen won't respond. Walmart exclusive model numbers that lead nowhere. Try Googling them. You'll find nothing, no reviews, no data, no way to know what's inside. That's not a deal, that's secrecy. See, Walmart works with brands to create offshoot products just for them. The outside? Recognizable. The inside? Compromised. They look like value, but they're manufactured cheaper, sold to trick the eye. Plastic internals, fewer ports, batteries that don't hold charges, and no support line when it all goes south. The quietest part? They're not knockoffs. They're real brands, just not the real product. How would you ever know? And don't even start on appliances. That burners fail in 3 months. that coffee makers rattle louder than your alarm clock, that hair dryers burn out faster than your vacation plans. You could return them, sure, but you won't, because once the box is open and the receipt too faded to scan, it just becomes easier to buy another. And isn't that the point? That's the design of this game. Convince you that losing a few dollars isn't worth the complaint, that it's no big deal. But it is, because those small losses, they add up. In time, in frustration, in energy spent making up for the difference of something that should have just worked. And should have worked is a phrase you'll repeat too often here, because maybe you came in for one thing, but you left with three, and that's not an accident. Walmart puts your eggs in the back for a reason, because getting to what you need means passing 10 things you didn't. Throw pillows that match nothing. Storage bins that can't hold their shape under the weight of your trust. Hand towels that turn to paper-thin sadness after 2 cycles through the wash. Impulse isn't a mistake, it's the business model. But here's the truth buried underneath it all. Walmart's not failing to do better. It's choosing not to, and you can choose differently. You're not stuck here. You're not wrong to want affordable. You're just tired of being sold cheap. Because there's a difference. And now, you can see it. Let's walk to the grocery section. You know the aisle. Cold tile, cold lighting, cold promises. Bread that feels soft until it doesn't. Fruit that looks bright under those LEDs but turns mushy in a day. Meat that smiles in bold freshness guaranteed packaging, but spoils in your fridge before the week is over. Everything looks clean. Labeled, sealed, but not every seal carries weight. Let's pause on the strawberries. They're bright, boxed, sitting under a big sign that says, Farm Fresh. But try asking where that farm is. You won't find it, because that's not a location. It's a feeling printed on cardboard. Behind the scenes, Walmart produced travels longer than most business consultants. Picked early, stored in massive distribution coolers, driven across more states than you've been to this year. And by the time it rests on that shelf, it's old under a new face. USDA studies have shown that long supply chain produce can lose up to 40% of its vitamin C content in transit. You're getting flash fresh appearance with week-old nutrients. It's not that the fruit's fake, it's that the freshness is. Same with their meat. It looks fine. Pink, plump, glossy under plastic. Until you open it. Customers say the smell hits them first. Sometimes sour, sometimes metallic. Never good. Reviews say things like, it looked perfect, but the moment I got home, it was gray. Spoiled overnight. And it's not a mistake. It's built into the system. Most Walmarts don't have in-store butchers, so what you're buying is pre-cut, pre-packaged, maybe pre-frozen, processed somewhere far away. No one trims the steak behind the counter. No one checks the color hour by hour like a real butcher shop does. No one's there to say, this batch isn't right, which means bad batches go unnoticed, unflagged, unsold, until they're slapped with a discount sticker and sold anyway. Especially the ground beef. Some of it is known to include up to 20% saline solution, water with additives to keep it red and heavy. That's not flavor. That's filler designed to beef up the price per pound. More liquid, less meat. And if you notice the weird texture while it cooks, that bounce, that shrink, that strange puddle it leaves in the pan, that's not your imagination. It's by design. Even their so-called value packs are built to move volume, not deliver quality. They're wrapped tight, but with a short shelf life countdown already ticking. Look, buying meat shouldn't feel like a gamble, but for many smart shoppers, Walmart is a dice roll they've stopped taking, and that's just meat. Look closer at the other shelves, and you'll find food that's been quietly downgraded over time. Big brands with small changes. Your favorite peanut butter now tastes slightly thinner. Maybe you couldn't put your finger on it, but it's not the same. That's because some manufacturers reformulate specifically for Walmart's margins. Less real nut content, more emulsifiers. They can still call it the same product. It still bears the logo. You still trust it. But the formula? Not the one you grew up with. And speaking of brands, the Great Value line is one of the biggest plays Walmart makes. Sometimes it's fine. Pantry staples, sugar, flour, stuff that's almost too basic to mess up. But when it veers into processed territory, like sauces, frozen meals, cheeses, that's where the cracks show. Taste, texture, ingredient quality. Customer reviews are filled with polite disappointment. Tastes like someone described spaghetti sauce to a robot. The cheese literally bounced when I dropped it. Not kidding. And maybe that would be funny if it didn't affect people's health, especially when you're feeding a family on a tight budget. Because great value sounds noble, but once you realize it's rarely great and only sometimes a value, it starts to wear thin. And speaking of thin, have you felt the bread lately? It flattens in your hand like it's trying to disappear. Loaves that used to hold their shape now beg for support because the recipe's changed again. And this change is everywhere. Quiet, normalized, accepted, but it shouldn't be. Because the issue isn't that Walmart is the only one playing these games. It's that they've mastered them, industrialized them, made them routine. They don't just sell food, they sell the appearance of food. You want crunchy chips? They'll give you air. The average Walmart chip bag is nearly 70% air by volume. It's called slack fill, legal, manipulative. And no, that's not exclusive to Walmart. But Walmart profits more from it because they push more units faster. Their scale makes illusion a feature, not a flaw. And then there's packaging. Deep jars with hollow bases, pasta sauce with thick glass ridges near the bottom, shaped to seem big while holding less. It's marketing via geometry. You think you're buying volume, but you're buying shape. And when you flip the label to compare ounces, sometimes Walmart's house brand offers even less than its national counterpart, for not much less money. It's deception by the decimal. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, isn't all shopping like this? Maybe, but here's where Walmart stands out. They don't stop at selling you less. They design the aisle to make more of your time disappear too. That's why milk is at the back. Diapers? Same. The high-need items are miles inside, through what researchers call impulse gauntlets. Candy, slippers, air fryers, fake plants, Bluetooth toasters. The longer you walk, the more likely you are to grab something you didn't plan on. And that's not accidental. It's spatial psychology. They don't just drive you to buy more, they drive you away from your list. Even shopping carts are part of the bait. The average Walmart cart can carry over 125 items. Why? Because small carts mean faster exits, fewer detours, smaller hauls. Big carts, big temptations. And that's the story here. Walmart doesn't just sell cheap, they sell default. You reach for the cheapest one because you think it's good enough. Because the packaging makes it look just like the name brand. Because the label promises something comforting. Because you're tired and you just want to go home. And that's the trade-off they're counting on. They know your life is too full to read fine print. They know you won't weigh that razor-thin fabric sample against longevity. They know you won't dig through the cereal aisle to analyze unit pricing by ounce. How could you? You've got kids, deadlines, pressure. You're just trying to make it home by dinner with enough gas in the tank to go to work tomorrow. They don't just sell products, they sell relief. But relief, when it's fake, has a cost. And later, when the towel thins, when the blender breaks, when the rug slides and your knees hit tile, that's when you realize what budget really cost you. Smart shoppers aren't just looking for the cheap option, they're looking for the right one. Because a good deal doesn't fall apart the second you get home. And if it does, was it really a deal? Here's where it gets personal. Because at some point, it's not just about cheap rugs, expired chicken, or flimsy plastic drawers. Those are symptoms. The real story is quieter, deeper. It's about what Walmart asks you to trade every time you walk through that sliding door. Time, trust, tiredness. They build the illusion of ease. One-stop shopping. Everything in reach. A place where families wander slowly, where single parents toss a budget together like origami, where students stretch paychecks across frozen meals and off-brand detergent. But the truth? Walmart sells short-term comfort at long-term cost. It's in the cycle of replacing what should have lasted. It's in the phone charger that frays after a month, in the curtain rod that droops before it's even been nudged, in the tote bag whose strap snaps the moment you commit weight. You think you're saving money, but you're just being nudged into buying more. Not because you're foolish, not because you're impulsive, but because Walmart designs it that way. The lighting, the music, the seasonal end caps with perfectly staged kitchens. It's soft manipulation. It's science wrapped in everyday normalcy. They don't ask, "What do you need?" They ask, "What can we make you feel like you need today?" And that's the playbook. Manufactured urgency, false simplicity. Shopping there doesn't always feel like spending wrongly. Sometimes it just feels like doing what's easiest. But easy isn't harmless when it eats into your peace. Because there's a nuisance Walmart doesn't put in a box. It's the emotional fatigue of buying things that break too soon, that don't work how they should, that leave you standing in the return line, cradling a broken toaster like a wounded bird, waiting for someone to scan it and pretend they're not judging you. That's not just inconvenience. That's micro-disappointment, over and over. You tell yourself, "It's fine, it was only $10. But $10, 5 times? That's not an accident. That's revenue. And deep down, you know it. You've felt it. You've stood in that fluorescent hum staring down the same aisle you visited last week, thinking, "Didn't I already buy this?" Yes, you did. And it wasn't even that long ago. But now the plastic lid doesn't close right. The battery leaks. The threads are unraveling. A handle came off. You glued it. It came off again. So here you are. You wanted savings. You got routines. Because Walmart has quietly turned shopping into a treadmill. Looks like progress. Feels like movement. But you never get ahead. You can't. And this isn't just about you. It's about the side effects. That independent shop around the corner, the one that sells sturdy kitchen gear or custom-cut meat, it can't survive next to an empire giving out air fryers at a fraction of the price, even if every one of those fryers ends up in the trash by February. Because Walmart's not just infamous for undercutting prices, they undercut quality, then call it affordability. Behind the scenes, brands make cheaper versions specifically for them. That same toaster you saw at Target, different internals at Walmart, same outer case, different sole. Sounds dramatic, right? But when the motor burns out 3 months earlier, and there's no warranty, no repair team, no customer support who knows the model number, you realize you've been sold a shell, a brand-colored shell, and that shell cost you time, a receipt hunt, a car ride, and hope. Some of you already knew this. You've made the mental notes. You've said, "Never buying clothes from here again," or "Their furniture falls apart the moment you move it." Others might still be learning it the hard way. And it's not your fault. Because the system plays on trust. Because most people aren't price researchers with spreadsheets. They're tired workers, parents, college students, grandparents, people just trying to feed everyone, replace a broken lamp, grab diapers and dish soap on the same trip. No judgment there. But this is a gut moment. Not to shame Walmart shoppers, but to remind you that smart spending begins not with cheaper choices, but with conscious ones. You can't win this game if the deck is stacked. Because Walmart made you think low price always means good value, but that's not what value is. Value is dignity. Value is long-lasting. Value is a shelf you can move without breaking. A coffee maker that lasts into next semester. A towel that doesn't sandpaper your back after 3 washes. Value is what stays. Ask yourself, what are you really buying? When a can opener bends like warm licorice under normal use? When a plastic bin caves in because it held more than 2 pillows? When you spend $30 to buy something 3 times, was it ever cheap? And it's not just the cheap goods that cost you. It's the quiet creep of disappointment. The 3 socks that vanished before the second wash. The Bluetooth speaker that won't pair. The blender that sounds like it's screaming. The luxury rug slicker than wet leaves. Small moments, but they pile on. And eventually, you start to expect failure. You lower your bar. You assume cheap is a gamble, and you live with it. But you don't have to, because there are better spots, cleaner cuts, honest brands, local stores that last because they offer products that last. And if even those feel out of reach, start with patience. Fewer purchases, but the right ones. Wait an extra month and buy something once. Something real. Because the tax of replacing junk is more than just numbers on your receipt. It's minutes of your life. It's energy. It's attention that could have been elsewhere. So maybe don't walk into Walmart next time. Or walk in differently. Ignore the rollback signs. Look beyond the packaging. Ask the uncomfortable question, will this last? Because you deserve more than markdowns. You deserve something that doesn't fall apart quietly while you're trying to hold the rest of your week together. They want one that's smart enough to work. Before you go, hit that subscribe button. We don't just review, we expose. From the hype to the hidden failures to the tricks brands hope you'll never question. So hit like, tap subscribe, and join thousands of smart shoppers who already know smart spending starts with asking smarter questions.